But we start with a laugh. That's
Yeah,
always a good thing.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Jeff and Doreen, and this is our first episode of our new life in Kenya.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to start with just a little bit of background about us. We met 8 years ago on Tinder,
Yep.
actually.
We met on Tinder. Yeah, we both swiped right. We texted each other for like a week, and then we decided to meet in person.
Yeah.
And then so we set a date, and Jeff was, I remember you telling me let's meet at Shady Lady. So that was my first time being actually at Shady Lady, and I really
It turned into our favorite bar, and actually it was because of the first date, more than anything. But it's a really cool spot. There's live music, great handmade drinks. It was a cool spot. But the first impression from the date was definitely love at first sight.
Yeah, it was. I remember just walking to Shady Lady, and I saw this beautiful man walking outside, and he was all smiling. It just felt like we knew each other. It was so natural. And then we hugged each other, and Jeff, you held my hand. I remember that. And then we just walked in.
Yeah, I remember it really clearly.
We sat there and talked about a lot of different things.
For a couple hours, we sat and talked in this crowded bar with people jammed up against us, but it was like we were the only people there. It was a really amazing first date.
It really was.
And then we went on several more first dates night after night, and we just kind of fell into it really fast. But it was something from that, how they say, an infatuation in a long-term relationship, that infatuation kind of fades. You go through that phase. But there was this connection that we had where we sat and talked, and today I still have that same fascination with her. I want to get to know her better and spend all my time with her, and just so that from that first date we couldn't get enough of each other. We love talking to each other, and that is the same today as it was 8 years ago.
So that we've been since
that's always stood out to me.
Since we met. So we met in Sacramento, and then Jeff had to move.
Yeah, just a couple of months later, I got a job opportunity in Seattle, Washington, which at the time was closer to my kids from a previous marriage. And so I left at it, and I was gone really quick. It happened suddenly. And
I was so sad. I remember that time you called me and you told me oh, you have to move. And I was like, what? It's kind of like I was just feeling really, all of a sudden it's like I met this person, and I just felt like, oh my gosh, everything, the chemistry, everything about us was just like, I've never felt like that with any person, and then him breaking into that news to me, like, you had to leave, was really sad for me. But
it almost ended us, but then within a couple of weeks she was coming up to visit, and I had gone down to visit.
You came to visit first, and then you invited me, and I remember you called me that time. I remember this, and you were telling me Seattle is so beautiful, and the only person missing is me, and I was just like,
that's right.
That's when I realized, like, oh, okay.
So I did love Seattle. I still love Seattle, but
me
the
too.
only thing missing was you. I remember saying that.
Seattle. And then you invited me, and I came for a week, and I remember I just fell in love with Seattle.
Even though it was so cold.
Cold and rainy.
That was during the winter in Seattle. It's pretty cold and rainy.
And then Jeff and I decided to move in together, and we've been inseparable.
Well, we were together 3 years. All together
and then we
in
got
Seattle
married.
Before we got married.
Yeah, we got married,
We eventually moved back to Sacramento before we came to Kenya. But your mom and Braxton,
my mom and Braxton, they joined us in Seattle. And then we got married.
Came back down to Sacramento.
And we had Cade.
Cade came along. So we have two boys, Braxton and Cade. And then that probably, to explain it better, is my first trip to Kenya, and our first trip as a couple.
So in 2019.
2019, it was really difficult circumstances.
Not the best way to introduce Jeff. The first time for him to come to Kenya was my brother's funeral. And African funerals is very different from what Jeff is used to.
Well, everything was brand new to me.
Everything was brand new. The culture,
the funeral, the countryside, the people, all of it was brand new. But I grew up rural. I grew up on a farm, and that exposure to nature and minimalism and quiet and friendly people, I'd missed that through a lot of my adult life, different places I lived. So coming to Kenya, it felt familiar. It really did. For as strange as things were during that first outing, it ended up becoming really familiar and comfortable very quickly. And that has stayed with me since that trip. So even in the years that followed, I had a new perspective on my life in the United States.
When we went back, it was just like it changed our perspective.
It did.
More so like, you know, my brother's passing just all of a sudden, and then Jeff coming to Kenya and just learning, and, you know, that was an eye-opening for both of us.
And it really started us on a journey of exploration and healing and growth that we've been on ever since then. That was the triggering event. And we've learned so much about ourselves and grown as a couple. And so this return to Kenya on a permanent basis was nothing more than a continuation of that journey. Because right after we got back to the States, we said, oh, we're going to retire in Kenya. And then it became 10 years, 5 years, and 2 years. And then one thing led to another, and we just took the leap.
To just move. Because we kept saying, like, okay, if we stay here for another 2 years, then
we'll be in the same spot.
And
so Kenya has become, or it's turned out to be everything we wanted it to be. We told our boys about it,
and they were so excited. I mean, they've been excited until now. We love being here. It's just been like
they're in school full time here, and they're having a better school experience than they had in the States. They're really loving it. But that's another discussion. But Kenya has been everything we wanted it to be. It's been a tremendous fit.
It really has.
It's been about 8 months now. We're still getting used to a lot of things. But
a lot of things. I mean, even though I was born in
even though
Kenya,
you were born in Kenya, it's been a learning curve.
It's been a learning curve for me. Most of the things are very familiar, but just bringing myself back into like, oh yeah, this is the new norm where, you know, a lot of
and at the same time seeing Kenya from a different
perspective.
Point of view,
yes, that part for me, because before it used to be like, oh, Kenya, like, you know, it's kind of like you don't want to be here because there's so many things that you prefer when you're in America. I feel like America spoils. It kind of like, it gives you these things like, you know, like electricity and water that we used to just take
for granted.
Didn't really, and then coming here, we have to like, how much water are we using?
Right, it's more like off-grid living where we are in coastal Kenya. We're in a small town. So, and that has always appealed to me. And so coming back here feels like something
and
comfortable.
For us too, we've been on this minimalist journey and just kind of going slow in life and be more present, you know, conscious living. And we feel like Kenya is just, it suits us.
The pace of life, the friendly people, being able to go slow. It's important.
The food, oh my gosh.
The healthy food that we're eating. Diet's completely changed. So we have a lot of things to talk about coming up, and we'll get to them. But this was just an introduction to say hi.
and why we moved to Kenya, basically. So
we're looking forward to seeing you in the future.